Smarties, in previous episodes of this podcast, we have shared how executive functioning skills impacts all aspects of studenting. In fact, we've actually given a talk titled The Executive Functioning of Studenting several times at various conferences and schools around the United States. But today we want to dig deeper into how learners who struggle with executive functioning skills complicate their lives in order to exert control over their time and things. If you are interested in establishing simpler, effective, maintainable systems for yourself or your learner, remember, we both work with adults in both of our practices, sign up for a phone call. Let's chat. You can sign up for a phone call on my website, which is www.kappedtherapy.com. That's Kapp with a K. And at my practice, we specialize in learners with executive functioning skills challenges, 5th grade through adulthood. And Steph's practice, her website is www.myedtherapist.com. And her practice does all the things working with early learners all the way through adulthood. Let's dig in.
You want to learn faster, but sometimes working harder is just not the answer. You have to learn smarter. The Educational Therapy Podcast.
Hi, Smarties. Welcome to episode 335 of Learn Smarter, the Educational Therapy Podcast. I'm Stephanie Pitts.
And I'm Rachel Kapp.
And I love talking about how learners complicate.
Oh, so can I share a story with you?
Yeah.
I worked with a learner when they were going into 8th grade, and it was a great year. Simple, maintainable, established systems that were maintained periodically, like weekly or twice weekly, initially with this learner.
This is the learner that came back.
Yes. They decided that they were going to do 9th grade on their own, and they're back. And it's been a very interesting few sessions with them because a lot of negotiation around systems, a lot of this doesn't work for me. A lot of that. And actually we were discussing what they were going to do for their physical system for organizing themselves. And you know our rules, stuff, everything in one place, easily accessible, simplify, simplify, simplify. Don't create too many rules around things because you're not going to follow through with them and so on. So I told them to go ahead and figure out how they want to organize themselves with their physical systems. I said, pitch it to me. That's what we're going to start off next session with. So I want to see what you come up with. But you know the rules. You know the things. You know how I'm going to respond to certain things. So they came to session. They were ready. They had multiple tabs open. And we negotiated it. We worked through it. We figured out some workarounds. We talked through things. Sometimes I was just simply like, no. And sometimes it was like, okay, we can negotiate this and iterate. But when I told them that we were doing this episode, I actually showed them what we had written.
Oh, how funny.
And they go, I feel very attacked. And I started laughing and I'm like, I didn't want you to feel attacked. What I wanted is for you to feel understood and seen and not alone, and that this is indicative of a lot of learners who, you know, need a little bit of guidance about their foundational systems. So
100%.
We wanted to talk this episode. It's indicative of what we see frequently. So right now, as we're recording this, we have 14 ways learners complicate their lives. But I have a feeling it will be a higher number before we get to the end.
By the time we're done?
Yeah. So, Steph, what are some of the ways learners complicate their lives? And what the title of this episode should really be is unnecessarily complicate their lives. But we don't want to have too many words in the title.
Fair enough. So calendars that aren't easily maintainable. So this could be anything from, I've seen kids where they have it on a physical planner, they write stuff digitally somewhere, and they might for one class, and then they might put it on a piece of paper for another. So this is not maintainable because, number two, it's not synced across all platforms, right? So you can't be doing things in multiple places and have different rules around all of that. It's got to be very simple, one way, and that's the way.
and different places to look and amalgamate all the information. It's already hard enough.
For sure. Then the other thing about calendars is they aren't front loaded.
What do we mean by front loaded?
So when we first start with a learner at the beginning of a semester, sometimes the beginning of the year, depends.
Or beginning of a relationship. They're just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah. We're putting things in that are coming down the pipeline. So that's anything from holidays and school days to things that are going to be important moving forward if we already know due dates of things, even if it's 2 or 3 months out. So at the beginning of a semester, a lot of times learners will get, they have a book report due every quarter or every semester. And when they go back to school, it's due December 12th. We're in August. That feels really far away and not necessary for those learners. However, they don't realize how time moves, and then that'll be there before they even realize it. So what we mean by front loading is actually putting that due date in already. As soon as we know it, we put it in, even if it feels far away. What's the next thing, Rach?
The next thing is a backpack with too many pockets. And this was actually something that we also had to negotiate with this learner, because a backpack with too many opportunities for places to go, just like a calendar with too many opportunities, a calendar that's on a Post-it, a calendar that's on the computer, a calendar that's on a planner. There's too many opportunities for where things to go. It's the same thing. We want simple rules of where things go in the backpack so that the ultimate goal of them having what they need when they need it is achievable. And then too many folders. This makes me crazy. Learners who are in middle school and high school should no longer be using individual paper folders. That's something that worked in elementary school when they had one teacher. The homework all went home on a Monday. It was all due on a Friday. Folders great in that sort of environment. But what we find is as students matriculate older, it's no longer makes any sense to do that. There's 7 or 8 teachers. They don't meet on every single day. It's expectations are different of how to turn it. It's a mess. So we don't want to have too many folders. And then this piggybacks on the next one, number 7, which is holding on to papers unnecessarily. So we've done a lot of episodes about how to prune the binder, and we'll go ahead and link those episodes in the show notes. Basically, you guys need to go back and look at all the executive functioning series episodes, because we talk individually about literally every single one of these things, and this episode is just kind of putting them all together. So learners will hold on to papers unnecessarily for a lot of different reasons. But for the most part, the main reason is fear of needing it. And the reason that these learners have a fear of needing papers, and we're talking about, you know, a unit that you did in September and the learners holding on to it in April.
Yep.
And the reason they have this fear is because these learners oftentimes don't have what they need when they need it. So their solution is, I'm just going to keep everything. And what that does is it makes it impossible to find what you actually need. We're not advocating for throwing things out necessarily. Sometimes we are. But there needs to be a quarterly pruning of the binder of what is currently meaningful, what will be meaningful, and what can we put aside and just store just in case, but unlikely to ever revisit it. And I will just say, we've been doing this for years and years and years and years. I don't think I've ever gone back with any student, maybe once, have gone back into that pile of things we're taking out of the binder and we're setting aside just in case. That just in case pile often isn't meaningful, but it makes learners feel better. So Steph, what is number 8?
Well, I was just going to add to that, the unnecessary papers. I have had learners who have gotten very worried about it.
Yeah.
And what I have done is created a packet of all of these papers, but it has to stay in my office.
Yep.
Because then we can prove they didn't actually ever need it, because the only place it is in my office.
It's not even accessible to them.
Exactly. And so then this is how I have held on to papers for an entire semester.
Yep.
And then gone back and said to them, look, did you need any of these? No, every single time. So sometimes you have to learn through experience, and that's one of those lessons for sure. So the other thing is, I think 8 and 9 really go together, but having a little plan without actually checking time or actually checking your calendar, I would say.
Assuming your calendar is all organized and front-loaded, synced across all platforms and in one place.
Right. This is something that having this little plan and then not actually having all of the information and creating a plan can really throw learners off. And you need to have all the information before you make a plan. Having these little plans, they literally say like little plans. Well, my little plan was, have that work out. Usually doesn't. So the other thing is time blindness, right? Not knowing or understanding the passage of time, what they're doing, how long it's taking, how long it actually takes them, knowing how long things should take, it all gets lost. And when you don't know the answers to the questions of how long will it take and how long did it actually take, and having that time blindness is things get really complicated because they save everything for the last second, or they do. Boy, does it get complicated. Oh, I love this one.
Yeah, this one I think is one that often gets ignored. And when you're establishing your digital systems, this is essential. And the next several are actually essential for digital systems. So the first is having a bookmark bar with appropriate bookmarks. The amount of time wasted for our learners going from this website to typing in this, and like oftentimes they'll Google things like over and over and over again. And it's just,
I know, or go to the school website to get to the email. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, we're simplifying everything. We're putting a bookmark bar. Y'all use Google Chrome. Don't be using Safari.
Yeah.
And making it simple, accessible, and achievable. And actually, it's so funny, that learner that I was mentioning earlier in the episode, her bookmark bar just had like a folder where everything was in it.
Oh,
And I said, why are you doing that? And she goes, well, it's nice and neat and organized. But this is an example of overcomplicating unnecessarily. This is like the perfect example of this episode. What she had done was actually create an extra step for her to click and then make a selection, as opposed to just making a selection.
Yeah.
So we talked through it. I said, how many steps for you to get to your email? And now put it on your bookmark bar. What she didn't like, and this is why it's important to have these conversations with your learners, what she didn't like was that she was worried about something that wasn't yet a problem, that her bookmark bar would get too full and she wouldn't be able to see what she needed to see. And so I just showed her how to delete the word and just have the icon, and then she was very happy. But by the way, she had like 4 things. Even if she had had them fully written out, it would have
been fine. Here's the other thing. You need to have the bookmark bar show.
Oh, it's such a simple thing. Yes. We're not talking about bookmarks. We're talking about the bookmark bar under the URL. Next is number 11, which is not having your passwords in one place. This is part of being a modern person. And passwords are everybody's nemesis. The amount of times you have to reset a password and log back. Having everything in one place, and this is why when we get learners who we can like coach up from 4th, 5th, 6th grade, we can teach them how to be a digital citizen, and this is part of it. Have a place that you're putting everything so that it's accessible across all platforms, across all computers that you might be using. Where can you access it for yourself? And have all the passwords in that one place. If this is not something that you have yet as a parent, or a teacher or a learning specialist, it's not something that you necessarily need to go back and try to recreate history, but now do it as you go when you're moving forward. Steph, what would you add?
There's multiple places that you can keep these things. You can get apps that are locked and that are encrypted and things like that. But if we're talking about some of the websites that don't really matter and nothing's going to really come of it, you could keep it in a Google Doc, you guys.
Yeah.
I mean, does it matter what the login is for Amazon? Yes, it does, because that has to do with money. But if it doesn't have to do with money, then I think it's probably okay.
Yep.
Yeah, some of my bookmarks of like, ReadWorks and things that I might use, or things that like, it doesn't really matter. If somebody gets the password, there's nothing personal on there. But you still need to have the password.
Steph and I both use an app. By the way, I upgraded that app stuff, so Adam and I both share it.
Oh, you're fancy.
We're fancy, so we're able to share passwords because I got really sick of asking him what the login was to like Hulu. Because you know how you get logged out of that for no reason?
Yeah.
Anyway, now we have it all in one place. Let's move on from this. We've made our point. Number 12 is having more than one email. So the learners that we often work with will create multiple burner emails of like, oh, I wanted this discount, which, by the way, just Google for the discount. You don't need to actually give them your password, but that's another story for another time. And so they'll create these multiple email addresses, and therefore there's so much they do nothing with them, and they can't log into any of them. So this is why we prioritize one email at max. For those of us who are high functioning from an executive functioning perspective, they can have 2. Steph and I both have 2 emails.
Mm-hmm. Your personal email needs to stay your personal email.
Yep.
Don't include anything else on your personal email.
Yep.
Okay.
Then we want to go back to sort of physical supplies. Steph, do you want to talk about these?
Yeah. So too many supplies that they carry around. Okay, so I have had students where I say, let's clean out your backpack. Let's find a place and home for everything. It looks like a bomb went off in it. And they'll pull out 15 pens, 12 erasers.
But they don't like this pen, but they do like this pencil, and they like this eraser. Mm-hmm. But what if I need a red pen? That doesn't even work. Go on. Mm-hmm.
Too many supplies, right? Number 1, it's adding weight to their backpack. Number 2, they're going to pull out the wrong one 9 times out of 10. So number 1, get rid of the things that you don't like. You don't need those just in case ones. And then have a couple, then the extra just in case can stay at home. I have negotiated this with many learners. I have had to negotiate as far as having a backup duplicate like pencil pouch that has to stay in the locker.
Yep.
But that's how we came to an agreement.
Again, that's that anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we got to an agreement and it stayed there. And that's okay. So in the emergency, did the emergency happen? No, but that's okay. So then the other thing is too many colors for notes or highlighting and color coordinating things. I've seen this so many times where they'll start writing notes and they'll change the color because they want it to be a certain color when they're talking about a certain thing, or it needs to match the day or the subject or whatever. And it starts to overcomplicate. It starts to become so tedious that they don't do it at all. And so if something becomes so tedious that then they won't do it, if it starts out tedious, it's not sustainable. And that's the important takeaway here, is that it's okay. I prefer students to write in pencil in general because it's erasable, because it is very easy to use. Like in their planners, I always want them to write in pencil. If they want to highlight it, if we have created a system, sure.
They love that stuff, right? But do that on your own time.
100%. That is fine. Or like highlight it when it's done. Some kids like to do it like that. Whatever the case is, don't start having 5 colors because, I write all my math homework in a blue pen and then I write all of my English homework in a red pen. Like, don't be doing that. That's too much.
Smarties, we have dug into all of these ideas in the various episodes in our executive functioning series. I want to share one more anecdote with that learner, which was one of the things that she was advocating for was that she was going to take notes on a sheet of paper and then rewrite them in a notebook.
Oh, I've been to that movie.
I looked at her, I'm like, you're never doing that.
Nobody has time for that.
Why would you? And she goes, well, it's a form of studying, which it is, but it's not the most meaningful form of studying, of active, engaged, meaningful learning. And so as soon as I said, you're not doing that, she started laughing. She's like, yeah, you're right. So Smarties, these are the 14 ways. I guess there were only 14. Well, we thought of everything. 14 ways learners complicate their lives. I'm going to say it, unnecessarily. Go forth, establish your foundational systems that are maintainable, simple, easy, accessible across all platforms. With that, have a great week.
Have a great week.